Hello everyone, this is Professor DePaulo, and I'm recording this lecture on social psychology since I couldn't get to it during the length of the course this semester. So this will be the conclusion of the material for the exam. So what social psychology does is it basically looks at the immediate environment in terms of how it affects behavior. So does your behavior differ in the presence of other people? How does it differ? In what ways can we change our behavior when we're with the group versus solo, independently, by ourselves, right? And the group does play a role, the immediate group. We're not talking about society. Society is on another level. We're talking about the people immediately around you, who you're connected to. So in social psychology, they talk about attribution or causes for particular behaviors and events. And according to attribution theory, we explain behavior with two types of attribution. Situational attribution, which means something outside the person doing the action caused the problem or caused the event to happen. So it wasn't the person, it was some other situation outside of them that created this, like peer pressure. Peer pressure causes teenagers to drink, to consume alcohol, or to smoke pot or do drugs, right? I mean, that's not the person, it's everybody around that person that says, we're all doing it, you should do it. Or there's another attribution, dispositional attribution. This is when you attribute the behavior or event to a person's stable, enduring traits, their personality. So, how did you fail the exam? Well, the situational attribution would be, I didn't have enough time to study, therefore I failed the exam. The dispositional attribution would be, I'm just not good enough, or I'm stupid, and I can't learn the material. I'm a terrible student. That's why I failed the exam. Now, these distributions differ in terms of culture. So, in Western societies like the U.S., we tend to make the fundamental attribution error. So we attribute things more to dispositional attributions, like I am this or I am that way, rather than situational attributions. In collectivist cultures, which are Eastern cultures, it's the reverse. It's more that behavior is a reflection on the group rather than the individual. So that makes sense. In America, it's I. I am this, I did this, I am smart, I am not smart, I make mistakes, I don't make mistakes, right? So you're always attributing things in Western culture to yourself. In Eastern cultures, collectivist cultures, I should state that the Western culture is called individualistic cultures, because it's about the individual. Eastern cultures are called collectivists. So, Asia, right? So if you know someone from Asia, they will see their behavior differently. So they value the group more than, say, Western countries value the group. So what exactly is the fundamental attribution error? Here's an example. I noticed the new guy tripping and stumbling as he walked in. How clumsy can you be? Does he never watch where he's going? Right, so here we're attributing the action, stumbling, tripping, to a dispositional personality, to who you are as a person. You are a clumsy person. That's a dispositional attribution. In Western societies, we make that decision too many times. We're very easy to attribute things to a personality or a disposition. However, a lot of times we want to look at the situation. So if that person trips on the rug, he or she is clumsy. But when you trip on the rug, it's not your fault. It's not that you're clumsy. You blame it on the situation. So the fundamental attribution error is when you focus too much on dispositional attributions for others, but also situational attributions for yourself. So if you fail the test, you're not stupid. You didn't sleep well the night before. You didn't study long enough. But when someone else fails the test, they must be stupid. This is the fundamental attribution error. And this is how we decide things, or we sort of interpret things in Western cultures. For us, we're great. I got an A on the exam. I'm really smart. You failed the exam. You were really dumb, right? But outside of that, there's a lot of factors, right? Maybe I got an A on the exam because I had enough time to study for the exam, and maybe the other person failed because they didn't have enough time. So that's something that you have to be cognizant of in terms of how you determine the cause and effect with regard to self and others. So when it's our own behavior, as I mentioned, we don't blame ourselves, but we take credit for our successes. You might think of this as making excuses for yourself. I think people do that on a regular basis. When it's other people, it's their fault directly. It has nothing to do with external situations. So people in that collectivist culture, that Eastern culture, emphasize group unity. And therefore, they don't make these kinds of attributions that Westerners do. The behaviors of others in the West is attributed to personality, if you're, in the Western culture, right? But in the Eastern culture, the collectivist culture, the behavior of the others is attributed to the situation. And also, credit for success is given to others. Blaming for failure is taken on oneself. That's completely different than America. America is, I am great, I have this, I am successful, and if I fail, it's somebody else's fault. That's basically how Americans interpret things. If you look at Eastern cultures, collectivist cultures, if other people fail, there's some kind of situational attribution. If other people are successful, it's the group. So you don't hear Eastern cultures, people in Asia, saying, I am so smart. You hear it basically saying, I have a lot of support, therefore I did well in school. I give credit to the people supporting me. My family, my friends, my professors. Right? Rather than just take the credit yourself, you're giving it to others. But when you fail, you take the failure on yourself. I am the weak link. I let them down. Why is that the case? Because in collectivist cultures, they believe in unity of the group. Right? The group is more important than individual. In individualistic cultures like the US, it's about individuals. It's always about me, I. So let's give an example of how this happens. So there's a problematic behavior, and I do this all the time. Someone's driving. They cut you off. So you get mad and you start yelling and screaming, what a horrible driver, what the hell is going on? And you throw in some choice curse words, and you're mad, you're angry. Like road rage, right? Sometimes you want to see who this person is. What are they doing? Are they on their phone? Like, are they paying any attention? So we tend to say, crazy driver, this person should not be driving. What the hell is wrong? What is wrong with them? Rather than saying a situational attribution where maybe the driver is sick. Maybe the driver doesn't feel well. Maybe the driver's got a lot going on in their lives. They're distracted. There's like some serious stuff going on and they're just not paying attention. We tend not to do that. We tend to say crazy driver, right? And that crazy driver leads to an unfavorable reaction. So we speed up and we want to see who that driver is. And if you ever driven a car, you've done this. Like the person in front of you is like weaving out of the lane. This person's drunk. This person's crazy. What's wrong with them? And then you want to see who it is, right? Like for some reason, if you magically see who it is, that's going to solve the problem. It doesn't. But we do that, and that's not a very good thing to do. Like speeding up next to a car that's driving erratically increases the chance of you getting into a car accident. But people do this to see the person or give them a dirty look or even curse them out. Road rage is all over the place, and it's probably not a good idea to be like cursing people out or even following them. I mean, I don't do this personally, but I have experience with people like someone cut them off, they're going to follow them until they park. And they're going to get out of their car and confront them. Instead of just leaving them alone, they're going to follow them. And that's not a good reaction. That's a dangerous reaction in some circumstances. What if the person has a gun? You really want to get into an argument with this person? So if we make this dispositional attribution, that leads to a problematic reaction, rather than making a situational attribution, which leads to a more tolerant reaction. And unfortunately, this is America. Dispositional attributions over situational attributions. Same thing with homeless people. You encounter homeless people on the street. Are they lazy and incompetent? Or maybe they just had a really bad problem. Maybe they're mentally ill. Maybe they had medical debt and they just couldn't keep up with it. Maybe they're unable to get a job in a bad job market. So what is your assumption? Are you going to make dispositional attributions and saying, all homeless people are lazy? I shouldn't have to supplement their income, go get a job? Or I'm going to make a situational attribution where I say homeless people have other issues, especially mental illness that's not treated. And we know that's the case. We know that homeless people a lot of times have higher levels of mental illness, including schizophrenia. And that will prevent them from holding on to a job, from having enough money to pay their rent or their mortgage. But a lot of Americans, once again, Americans, the I culture, right? A lot of Americans think too lazy or incompetent to get a job. I'm not giving you any money, get a job. And there's even the idea that homeless people are alcoholics and they're going to spend their money, whatever money you give them, on alcohol and drugs. And there may be, an element of truth to that. But you can't look at every homeless person that way. And I think if people realize that homeless people were not always homeless, there'd be a different kind of reaction. We wouldn't just cast these people aside as, I'm successful, the American dream, whatever that is, right? They can pursue their dreams. And maybe they can't. It's not always about laziness. So these attributions, ways of making decisions on behavior and the resulting of these events, leads to attitudes, facts and beliefs about how we react to other people and how we see our own actions. Our attitudes affect our actions, and our actions actually can influence our attitudes. And the way this is shown, there's two routes of persuasion, the central route and the peripheral route. So the central route is being rational with people. My product has been proven more effective. I've tested this product, it works. I have data. Or the peripheral route, which is, get celebrities out there. Right? Avoid logic. Appeal to their desires, their fears. And you saw a lot of this during the election, which was a problem, in my opinion. That campaigns went the peripheral route. So it's not like, these are my policies as president. This is my track record. See what I've done? Vote for me based on my record, based on what I say I'm going to do and what I've done in the past. That would be the central route to persuasion. In my opinion, that's the way I make decisions, because I make decisions based on logic. But not everybody does that. A lot of people look at other things around that person. So the politician that gets celebrities to come out and rally the crowd is going the peripheral route. Saying, vote for candidate X. So-and-so endorses candidate X. Therefore, I'm going to vote for them. Like Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift endorses Kamala Harris. Therefore, I'm voting for Kamala Harris because I love Taylor Swift. If she can do it, I'm going to do it. Or whether it's Beyonce, or whether it's about, anybody, right? Any of these celebrities, or athletes, or famous actors and actresses. There's no logic going on there. It's more like, you want to be with us. We have the energy. We have the vibe. And you heard the word vibe a lot. Like the vibe. The vibe is okay if you can back it up with, data. You can have a vibe, but you can't just live on the vibe. And so most people aren't going the peripheral route, based on celebrity endorsements. But there are plenty of people that do this. I'm not saying everybody does it, but there are plenty of people that do this. They want those celebrity endorsements. If a celebrity is advertising something, they want to go out and buy it. They want to vote for the politician that their celebrity is endorsing. That peripheral route can work with some people, but not everybody. And I think that was a big, big miss with regard to Kamala's, her election candidacy, right? So instead of sort of talking about her record and her platform and what she wants to do, she was too busy grabbing celebrities at rallies and getting endorsements from them. And those celebrity endorsements just weren't enough. They weren't enough to sort of outweigh the people that were very upset with the economy and possibly with immigration. So you have to be careful how you get out. Certain people are going to be more prone to the peripheral route, and other people more prone to the central route. So attitudes affect our actions when external influences are minimal, obviously. The attitude is stable. The attitude is specific to the behavior, and the attitude is recalled easily. So, for example, I feel like eating at McDonald's, and I will eat at McDonald's, right? So why will you eat at McDonald's? Well, there's no data telling me that I'm not going to eat there, right? Are you going to look at the caloric content on the menu? I think they put the menu at McDonald's with the caloric content. No. You're not going to look at that. You don't want to look at that. You don't have anyone sort of hitting you over the head saying, hey, by the way, don't eat at McDonald's. That's not healthy. We know it's unhealthy. Right? There's no doctor there at the door telling you not to eat. Now, if there was, maybe you would change your mind. But since there isn't, I feel like eating at McDonald's, I will eat there. You enjoy their food. Tastes good. I have a craving. It's not all the time. But I have a craving, so I'm going to go there. It's easy to remember how good it is when I drive by it every day. The food tastes good. It's cheaper than, say, Whole Foods, right? You enjoy the food. And you don't have anybody immediately telling you, don't do this. It's empty calories. So therefore, you're going to act on this attitude, And we can rationalize the attitude like, oh, well, I only have McDonald's once in a while, therefore it's fine. All things in moderation. Or I'm not doing anything else that's bad, so I'm not drinking or doing drugs, therefore I should be allowed to engage in this one vice of eating McDonald's. So, in what way do attitudes direct our actions? We just showed that attitudes can affect our actions if we don't have people contradicting us, and we can recall our attitudes of the past, our behaviors of the past. How do we deal with a situation when our attitude is different from our action? So we're going to use either the foot in the door phenomenon, role playing, and cognitive dissonance. This is when your action is opposite of your attitude. So when your action and your attitude sort of contradict, you have to change one or the other. Your action or your attitude. Right? Think about the McDonald's situation. My action is I just got a bunch of fast food at McDonald's. Now, my attitude could be, well, McDonald's is not the healthiest. So now there's a conflict between your action and your attitude. What's easy to change to make them more in line with each other, right? Can you change your action or your attitude? Well, you could change your attitude. That's pretty easy. You could just say, as long as I don't eat McDonald's every day, it shouldn't really be that detrimental to me. So eating McDonald's is not good for you, but you rationalize it by saying, I'm not having it all the time. Now, if you're not having it all the time, you might be having it 5 days a week. And that's pure rationalization. But that's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to tweak that attitude than to say no to McDonald's. All right? McDonald's, yeah, I want to get that. It's fast. It tastes good. It's relatively cheaper than some of the other healthier alternatives. But we can change our attitude to sort of correspond with the action of buying McDonald's. We could also change our behavior and our attitudes by making a small gesture. That small gesture will lead to a larger compliance. This is called the foot in the door effect. So, for example, a political campaigner asks if you would open the door just enough to pass a clipboard through. You do, and then you sign the petition that they're asking for. Now, after you sign the petition, they ask you, can you make a small donation? And if you sign that petition, you're more likely to make that small donation because you got your foot in the door. You already agreed to one thing, signing the petition, that makes it more likely you agree to a bigger thing, like making a financial contribution. That's a foot in the door effect. You see this with charity. They send you things in the mail. So I get a lot of charities and they say, here's a dollar bill. So they'll actually send you a dollar bill. And then they'll tell you about what they're raising money for. And if you want to donate. So that dollar bill is kind of the foot in the door. So they're giving you something up front. Hoping to change your attitude about donation. Because now you feel like you're obliged to donate, right? They're sending you money. Even $1. And you say, oh, maybe I should give them something. They sent me $1. And then you agree to a small contribution. Now, if you make the small contribution, you're more likely to agree to a larger contribution later on. Foot in the door phenomenon. You adjust your attitude after your behavior changes, right, and you sign the petition or you make a small donation, you adjust your attitude. And you're more likely to agree to a bigger ask. So here's that $1 in the mail. Can you donate to us? Okay. Now I changed my attitude because you guys sent me $1. I feel better about you. I feel like you're doing better work. I shouldn't throw this in the garbage. I should actually read what you're doing because you sent me $1. And so you read it and then you feel like I should donate something. And once you donate a little bit, they're going to follow up again and again and again for a larger donation. Once you start with a charity, and I believe in donating to charity, of course, but once you start giving to a charity, they're going to want more. Right? They're not going to want less. They're going to want more. And they're going to constantly bombard you for more. That's how they work. How does role-playing affect attitudes? Well, if we pretend to do something, if we role-play and perform an action, eventually we adopt the attitudes that go with that action. So if you have to go out and tell a bunch of high school kids, don't use drugs and don't drink alcohol. Let's say that, you were asked to do this. Now, is that going to affect your drug use and alcohol use? Probably. If you're going and telling high school kids don't use drugs, don't drink alcohol, or maybe in moderation, then you're going to look at your own behavior and say, maybe I shouldn't be drinking as much. Maybe I should be using these drugs. And they may change your behavior. So when you role play or perform an action that's different than your original attitude, your attitude kinds of shifts. And we see this in the Stanford prison experiment, which I gave as part of the extra credit. It's interesting to watch, where they assign people to be either prisoners or guards. And this was all fake. This was all role-playing. Well, what happened to the guards? The guards started hating the prisoners. And they started justifying why they were the prisoners. They had demeaning views of the prisoners. Now, these are their fellow students. They were randomly assigned to be prisoners or guards. And they were upset with this. They were upset with the prisoners. They thought the prisoners really deserved to be treated badly. And the prisons, once again, didn't like the guards. Prisoners didn't like the guards either, because the guards were acting on them, and they felt violated and oppressed, and they lashed out at the guards. So that's the idea of basically role-playing and changing your attitude. This all ties into cognitive dissonance theory, which is a theory by Leon Festinger in 1957, where if you give a small reward to endorse an activity, their attitudes would change. So if you paid someone $1 or $5 to say something they're against, their attitude will actually change in favor of that statement. So we change our attitudes to fit our actions. That's what cognitive dissonance is. Whenever our actions are different than our attitudes, we feel tension, like an anxiety state. And we resolve that anxiety state mostly by changing our attitudes. We can also change our actions, but that's harder. It's easier just to change our attitudes. For example, Fiona agrees to do some fundraising for her college. And she said, so originally she says the tuition here is too high. But now she's agreed to work with the school to tell students that the school really needs the money, that the tuition is fair, and they really need them. They need the money to operate the best they can operate. So she tells a bunch of students, well, the school needs the money, so you should really, endorse the tuition hike. Now, if she does this is the opposite of her original attitude. Originally, she thought the tuition is too high. Now she's not thinking that. So she changed her action by basically saying the school needs the money, right? And by doing that behavior, changing that action, her attitude changes, and she says, maybe the school has a point. Maybe my attitude was wrong to begin with. The tuition isn't too high. So in this case, whenever you have someone perform an action that is contrary to their original attitude, if they perform that contrarian action, their attitude will also shift to fit that action. Now, this only works if the person is doing it voluntarily or for a very small amount of money. Like if I give someone $500 to tell students that the tuition needs to be raised, that's not going to change any attitude, because now you have an external justification. Like, I got paid $500. Of course I don't believe this. I'm only doing it because I'm getting paid. But if you were to convince someone to give a attitude, a speech against, in favor of raising tuition, if you were to convince someone to give that speech in favor of raising tuition, they would do it, right, for a small amount of money. Then their attitude will actually follow their action. So large external rewards do not change attitudes. Zero or a small external reward will change attitudes. So that's the cognitive dissonance theory. If your action is different from your attitude, you feel tension. You have to resolve that tension by either changing your action or changing your attitude. Most of us change our attitudes. You see this with smoking. Smokers know that smoking is going to kill them. It's bad for you. Now, they're smoking, that's their action, their attitude is that smoking is harmful to them. So there's a tension state between smoking and knowing that smoking is harmful. So smokers can either do two things. They could stop smoking, in which case their attitude and action will be together in compliance, or they can change their attitude about smoking and say, oh, wait a minute, my mother, my father, my grandfather, my uncle, they smoked till they were 80 and they were fine. My aunt was a chain smoker and she was okay. Nothing happened to her. So this idea of smoking going to kill me, that's really overblown. That's what a lot of smokers do, because it's much easier to think this way than to say, I'm going to quit smoking. And you know what? They're right. There are people that smoke forever and smoke a lot, and they're okay. Maybe eventually they get emphysema. Maybe they don't get anything worse than that, although emphysema is a pretty bad disease in terms of breathing. But they're not getting the heart disease, and they're not getting the cancer, right? Or they may sort of justify it as, we all have a vice. We all have our vices. So I smoke, I won't drink as much. Or maybe I won't use illicit drugs as much, or ever. I'm just going to smoke. Therefore, it's not going to harm me too much. Smoking is terrible for you. Believe it or not, it leads to cancers that are horrible. Are you going to get those cancers? I don't know. It's like rolling the dice. You want to roll the dice? You can roll the dice. And that's what a lot of smokers do. That's what a lot of drug users do. That's what people that are overeating and eating very unhealthy, they do the same thing. Well, this is the only thing that gives me pleasure, so I'm just going to eat all this food. And if I gain weight, I gain weight. If that makes me unhealthy, I'll cut down on some other things. Or I'll worry about it later. So that's the cognitive dissonance part of this chapter. Attitudes part. The next part is about conformity. So how do we act when around other people? Well, we mimic them. If one person yawns, other people yawn. It's done automatically. If one person yawns in the class, someone else will yawn. If one person is rubbing their forehead in some way, someone else may be rubbing their forehead in some way. This is automatic mimicry. We also have these social rules to follow. They're called social norms that our society tells us this is the way we should be. That also affects our behavior. So this affects our behavior through two ways: normative influence and informational influence. So besides yawning, we also have contagious accents. So people from the same area generally talk with the same accents. Mood. If you're around people that are very happy, you're going to be happier. If you're around people that are miserable, it's going to make you more miserable. And the same with coping styles, and that a lot of that comes from your parents. You may mimic their behavior, which could be problematic in terms of domestic violence. So the famous study on conformity was done by Solomon Asch. So Solomon Asch, and these are great videos to watch. So if you want to YouTube this, YouTube the Solomon Asch study. It's great. So basically, there's a bunch of people here that are giving wrong answers. Like, everybody knows the answers are wrong, but they're all giving the wrong answer. So there's a picture of a square, and they ask how many sides does the square have? And they all say 5 sides. So if you have 10 people, and 9 of them say 5 sides, and you're the 10th person, you're going to be like, what's going on here? So do you want to go against the group by saying all of you are wrong? Or do you just go along with the group because it makes you feel less anxious? If these 9 people are saying a square has 5 sides, maybe I don't know what a square is. And if I disagree with them, maybe they're going to look at me like a complete idiot. So I'll just go along and say the same thing. So he did this study with a line. So he showed people line segments, and he said, of these 3 lines, which one matches the other line? And it was very blatantly obvious, but everyone gave the wrong answer. So you can Google the Solomon Asch study if you want to see the original footage. It's kind of funny. So when are you going to conform to your peers? When you don't know the answer, when you're not committed. So you may not conform with regard to how many sides does a square have, because we're pretty committed to that. We don't question that belief. But you may waver when there's something there that you're not as convinced at. If you don't know 100% in your mind the answer, you're more likely to go along with other people. Also, if the group is unanimous and medium-sized. So if everybody's saying the same thing, are you going to go against them? The answer is probably not. Or you think highly of these people. Like if these are your peers, like you think highly of, or professors, or the smartest people you know, and they all say one thing, even if you think it's wrong, you're probably going to go along with it. Or if the group tries to make you feel incompetent or closely watched, you're more likely to go along with them because you feel pressure that they're going to make you sound like an idiot. Or if your culture encourages respect for norms. So a lot of cultures with norms, I would say collectivist cultures. So once again, the Asian cultures where the group is very important. You don't want to have the group in dissent. So there's more likely a conformity there to encourage group harmony, rather than in Western cultures, which are individualistic, where people just like, nope, you're wrong. All of you are wrong. I'm the smartest one in the room. All of you are wrong. I mean, there's plenty of people in Western cultures that will say that. It really depends on the topic. So normative social influence is going along with others to get their approval, like the Asch study I just described. You're going along to get approval, going along to get along. Informational social influence is when you go along with others because you lack information. So this happens like, let's say you're waiting at the train station and you don't know what's going on, right? The train's delayed or the train's like not ready, and you're looking around for information. Like, what do I do? Like, should I wait here for this train? Is the train coming? Is it not coming? So you look to other people. And you say, oh, those people are all lined up waiting for the train, so I guess the train's coming, so I'm going to go with them. Or if they start walking away, you follow them. They don't know where they're going, but neither do you, so you're following them. And they're probably following someone else. So they're trying to get information. So we can also conform to get information when we lack information. But the vast majority of times we're conforming is to fit in, and that's normative social influence. Where is conformity playing a role in the Milgram study? So I've also posted part of the Milgram study for you to watch. The Milgram study is absolutely amazing. It is one of the most unethical studies ever developed, but it's amazing. So what happens in the Milgram study is you have a authority figure, right, called the teacher. I'm sorry. You have an authority figure, the researcher. I got my variables mixed up. So the researcher tells the learner to answer the question correctly. And if you don't answer the question correctly, we're going to shock a person in the other room. So here was the situation. You have the learner in the other room. The learner is really working with the researcher. They're called the confederate. They work with the researcher. Then you have the instructor. The instructor here is the experimenter. He's running the study. He works for the experimenter. And all the instructor here is telling you to do is give a shock. So basically, they gave them a task, like a matching task, memory task. And if the learner got the wrong answer, the participant, i.e. you, would deliver an electrical shock to this learner. So the question is, how much shock would you as the participant give to the learner who you can't see but you can hear? They're in another room but you can hear them. So every time they gave a shock, the learner would say, ouch, ouch, that hurts, stop it, stop it. I can't take any more of this. I have a heart condition. Stop it. So what happened? Well, they kept going up, starting at 15 millivolts. They kept going up and up and up, all the way to XXX. So the participants saw XXX, and they were told to give the shock, right? Now, they don't know that this learner here is faking it the whole time. These are not real shocks. These are fake electrical shocks. This person's an actor. And they're zapping them. And they're going up and up and up. And it's saying intense. Then it's saying extreme. Then it's saying danger. Then it's saying XXX. And you know what happens? The participant, which is you, will keep giving the shocks. Now, when you hesitate, the experimenter is going to say, please continue to give the shock. I accept all responsibility. Continue to shock the learner. And instead of walking away from this, the learner, the participant here, is going to keep shocking the learner. All the way up to XXX. There's even a point in time when the shocks are occurring and the person stops responding. So the participant thinks that the learner is dead or disabled or passed out. And they still administer shock. And the question is, why? Why are they doing this? Is the participant, i.e. you, are you evil? Or are you conforming to the experimenter? This is an authority figure, and you're conforming to this authority figure. You're taking orders, and you're following orders. So are people just evil, sadistic? Or are they just following orders? That was sort of the question asked. So most people predicted they would stop when the learner expressed pain, but in reality, even when the learner complained of a heart condition, most people continued to shock that learner. Remember, fake shocks. Please continue. You must continue. The experiment must go on. So whenever the researcher said this, the participant kept shocking. So how far did the compliance go? 2/3 of all participants made it all the way up to XXX. And they kept shocking, and then the experimenter had to say, the study's over. No more shocking. But people were shocking the learner with 450 volts multiple times, even when the learner wouldn't respond and said they had a heart condition and they thought that they might have killed the person. They were still following orders, which is amazing. And terrifying at the same point, right? Like, people are good at following orders. And they'll follow those orders to the most extreme cases. And this Milgram study shows it. It was also a very ethically questionable study because it's causing trauma. The participants that are saying shock, giving the shocks, even though they're fake shocks, they don't know they're fake. They feel responsible. They feel emotionally disturbed by giving the shock. They'll still give it, but they don't feel good about giving it. And so it's a lot of trauma here. What factors increases obedience? Legitimate authority figures. Someone standing close by also led to more compliance. And when the victim is in the other room, so the learner can't see who they're shocking. I mean, the participant can't see who the learner is and how they're being shocked. What do we learn about these studies? There's a very strong pressure to obey or conform, especially to a legitimate authority figure. We can look at that person committing these harmful acts as being cruel or evil, But that's committing the fundamental attribution error. It's the situation. So the idea is, look at the Holocaust. How could everybody obey Hitler's evil orders in the concentration camps? Are all those people evil, pure evil, that are administering these punishments? Well, maybe, but maybe also they're following a very charismatic authority figure, which Hitler was. People idolize Hitler. And they believed in Hitler. And they believed in the stuff he was saying about eradicating certain parts of the population and creating the Aryan race. So it's one thing to say that anybody that participates in any kind of act of murder is pure evil. But they're also in a situation where the evil may be more the situation, right? So, charismatic authority figure. The executioners don't see the victims. Putting people in a gas chamber. They don't have to watch people die. I mean, they could, but they don't have to. Right? So they don't feel like they're killing them. They feel like this is the right thing to do. So we have to be very careful about when we label things as evil. This person's evil. If they're acting under the influence of somebody else. Hitler is evil. Right? Is everybody that listened to Hitler evil? That's more debatable. Or they just kind of, the situation got to them and they believed in the Hitler revolution. They believed in his ideas. That's the debate we have. Group behavior. So all of these things can occur within a group. So the group dynamics influence these behaviors. Social facilitation, de-individuation, groupthink, social loafing, group polarization. Individual performance is intensified when you're watched by other people. Experts excel. Novices do worse. So if you're an athlete and you're a professional, you're a highly skilled athlete, if other people are watching you, they're boosting your performance. If, however, you're a novice, when other people are watching you, you're going to perform even worse. So the presence of other people boosting your performance is called social facilitation. So being watched creates motivation for those that are confident, but it also creates anxiety for those that are not confident. And motivation increases performance and anxiety decreases. So the presence of other people really alters how people behave depending on their level of expertise. Social loafing is when people are lackadaisical. They leave it to other people to complete the task. An example of social loafing is, I have a group project and I'll let my group members do it. I'll do nothing and everybody else will do the work for the group. That's social loafing. That drives me crazy about group projects and stuff. Even when I was a student, it always happened that group projects, you always had one or two people in your group that did nothing. And they just wanted to be carried. Let everybody else do it. I'll just be carried along. And that's not right, but that's what people think. So if your individual contribution is not rewarded or punished, and you're in a group, there are going to be people that will slack off, which is called social loafing. The Stanford prison experiment, where people were dressed up as prisoners and guards. This is an example of de-individuation. You lose self-awareness and restraint when you're in a group and you're anonymous. So in the case of Stanford prison experiment, all the guards were anonymous. All the prisoners were anonymous. So that's why they acted the way they did. They lost their self-awareness and their restraint. And they were basically fighting each other, even though they were all college students. Same thing happens with the KKK. So Ku Klux Klan would wear white robes with hoods. So why did the Klan wear white robes with hoods? Because they didn't want people knowing who they are. And you had a lot of members of the Klan that were very influential people and very wealthy people and people that were well known within the community. And so they didn't want anybody to know what they were doing. And by masking their identity, they were more likely to act on their hatred. That pure driven hatred. I mean, it's the same thing online. It's like if you go on Twitter, there's lots of de-individuation because you don't know who these people are. You got people that make up fake names, they go on Twitter, and then they start arguing or they attack people, they make fun of people. They say all kinds of nasty things on Twitter or social media in general. But you see a lot of crap on Twitter. And they feel empowered to do this because their identity is masked. They're online. They're the keyboard warriors, right? Like they're willing to fight you online, but if you saw them face to face, they would have no interest in fighting you. They'd walk away. But if you put them in front of a computer and you put an anonymous name on the screen, they're willing to fight you. They're going to call you all kinds of names. They're going to talk all kinds of trash to you that they wouldn't do if they had to meet you in person. The keyboard warriors. We have a lot of those in our culture today. You got a lot of people that are online saying a bunch of bullshit. Really, that's what it is. Because no one knows who they are and they can act out. And that's a problem, right? I mean, that's, do you want to hold people accountable for what they do on social media? If they're sexist, racist, bigoted, anti-Semites online, that their identity is hidden, is that okay? I mean, to me, it's not okay. But that's what people are engaging in these days. They could spew hate behind their keyboard, but if they're in the same room as somebody, they're not going to say a word. That's de-individuation, hiding of identity by being in groups. Polarization. If you are in an extreme group, you're going to meet with those people and become more extreme. So this is the same thing with the election. If you're liberal and you meet with a group of liberals or progressives, you're going to become more progressive after meeting with them and talking to them. If you're conservative and you meet with all conservatives, you're going to become more conservative after meeting or talking with like-minded people. So if we only deal with like-minded people, we will become more polarized. That's why the country is polarized. Because if you're a Democrat or you're progressive or you're liberal, depending on how progressive you are, right? If you watch MSNBC, and that's the only thing you're going to watch, because they take the same position you do, you're going to become more progressive by watching MSNBC. If you're conservative and you watch Fox News, you're going to become more conservative because that's all they're talking about is conservative issues. It'd be ideal if people would talk to people they didn't agree with. If liberals watched Fox News and conservatives watched MSNBC, there might be more, agreement in the country. But they don't. They're going to their own corners, and that makes polarization even more extreme. And how do we stop it? I don't know. I mean, it's already baked into our culture. How do we get back to, say, like when things were a little bit less polarized, say in the 80s, where you had Democrats voting for Ronald Reagan. Reagan Democrats, right? You had Republicans voting for Bill Clinton. Can you have that now? I don't know. Are you going to have conservative people voting for Bernie Sanders or Kamala Harris? Probably not. So that's polarization. You also have groupthink. When people meet in a group, they tend to echo each other's perspectives, and they tend to make a lot of errors because there's no. They tend to make a lot of errors because there's no discussion of various alternatives. So if you're meeting with people that are thinking the same way and they discourage disagreement, you're more likely to engage in groupthink, and you're more likely to have problems in terms of making decisions. You're not accounting for all the problems because you're listening to people that agree with you all the time. Despite all these forces, some people resist obeying and conforming. And groupthink can be prevented if someone would speak up when they disagree with the decision instead of keeping quiet and keeping the group harmony. So I'm going to stop there. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any other questions about this chapter, please let me know. Bye for now. See you soon.